I've got the charge sheet here, because although they got freedom of information, down in Adelaide, can you put this onto the, can you get that bottom paragraph on there? There's a bottom paragraph there.
Yep.
You see a number?
Yeah.
Right. That's we won't try to put too much on, but as long as people are seeing the number. Now, the date is 23rd of January 1989, and Polachek did his report, and then Rofe wouldn't prosecute. Rofe wouldn't prosecute. Now, how could it be more watertight? How could you have a more watertight case? Forensic examination, and my evidence, of course, but backed up with the forensic, and then Barbara Thorpe had lied to Polachek. She twisted and turned at every opportunity, and in the end she was nailed. Now, Rofe refused to prosecute.
And was she under pressure from other sources
it's the culture. I've talked about the culture before. See,
so it's not something she'd taken upon herself to pervert, and
she got caught in the courtroom because Calaby had told her to rewrite the notes. There's no doubt that she was like a student, or certainly a trainee, and it was Calaby that told her to go and rewrite the notes. She was under instructions there, no doubt about that. But nobody told her to lie to Kelly. To Kelly in the first place.
Yeah.
See, Kelly said, "Did you do any editing?" She should have said on the spot, "Oh yes, I did." And then when she dropped the notes, it showed that something in her memory must have tweaked. She must have remembered, because how many, or unless they do it all the time, perhaps they do. But she certainly deliberately lied to Polachek. And so Polachek was after her, because I don't think anybody likes to be lied when they're doing these things. And now, I wrote to Rofe around about May of this year, 1989, because I was appealing and doing all this sort of stuff, and I knew that if I could get this prosecution started, well, that collapses their case. You can't have this. She was a star witness. She was their accountant. She was the one that put in figures. And she put in the figures showing all of monies owing, but she didn't show the credits. She just put a whole heap of false figures in. And I was able to question her at the appeals tribunal hearing, and she said, "Oh, we put the file aside." See, when Calaby said we won't worry anymore, they'd already seen enough, remembering that the companies had paid all their debts. There was never a reason for this to ever start. And then it was just that this other fella, Lane, came along afterwards, and he picked up the thing and used it, and he just went off half-cocked. I don't blame Barbara for bringing on this matter. She's just caught because I wasn't. Well, you can see how interested I was. I didn't even read the thing, and how interested would she be? They were just doing a job, and then they said, "Oh, there's nothing here," and put it away. But you see, she made a great blunder when she then said she didn't edit. It's getting a bit cold here now. Right, we're a little bit warmer now. Jake, can we?
Oh yeah.
Can we have a bit of a go while Jake's doing the cork popping? Don't pop it. Here's another piece of paper to look at. I'll just read it first before you look. This was sent just a year ago to all the members of Parliament in Adelaide. It was sent on April the 22nd, 2004, and I sent it to every one of the politicians. So the members of Parliament have got no excuse for ever saying they don't know about my case, because I've hounded them by email. I've hammered them. And this is the start of it. I'll read the first little bit. It's the subject is evaluating Rofe. This is before Rofe resigned. And you can read that. Can you read that there? My complaint.
Got it.
Oh.
You got it? Oh, look what Jake's doing.
Dear. No, not too much wastage there.
Now, if you didn't get it properly, my complaint against Rofe is not one involving death and injury and all that sort of stuff. It's a book matter. My evidence is absolute clear cut. It's not somebody's word against the other. Barbara Thorpe tried to get out of it and she's nailed. And that's the end of it. Now, this is why my case is important, because there is no doubt about my evidence. And it's about time you people down there in Parliament fixed it up. You got rotten laws, you put in people like Rofe and Manick, and you still got rotten appeal laws from a magistrate. Howard Zelling, back around 1979, said these laws are wrong. You can't put fresh evidence before a judge. And he looked into it. And in Victoria, if you want to appeal from a magistrate, you do. And your case is heard all over again by a judge. Now, this case got cooked up on me because they knew they'd just do what they damn well like. And it's about time you guys in Parliament fixed it up. Now, we'll have a drink, eh? Did I tell what I thought of him?
I think
Bastards.
so. I don't think there's much doubt there.
Well, there shouldn't be any bloody doubt. They're a lot of scum. They cover up malfeasance. That's what they do. They cover it up all the time. And it's about time it became public. And I'm very pleased that Peter, I can't say I'm pleased that he lost his job because he's lost the pay. But now that Peter's not very involved, he's on the back bench, there's at least one good politician, but I don't want to be against everyone down there because that lady, and I think she's a Labor person, that Frances Bedford, she's on the tape that came up from Adelaide. And I know Graham Gunn too, he's probably forgotten me, but when I was involved in opal mining, I saw Graham with Stan Konopka. But I don't want to speak against all of the people down there, but you people that are in charge, you ought to resign. I'm a victim in this, and the Freedom of Information people gave me the police file number, but you won't let me even see it. But it doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned because I know what happened. And I'll have a drink and I'll tell you a bit more. Hold on, we should give a toast to Nicole and Vanessa because they're not here. I'm sure they'd like to be here, but a bit more champagne for us. Around about May of that year, that's 1989, I wrote to Rofe and he was good enough to answer and say that yes, he's looked at it and he's not going to proceed. And I also wrote to the Commissioner of Police and he was good enough to reply and say the prosecutors decided he won't go on with it. But that's all I could get. And I didn't get anything else for years.
Did they give any justification as to why the prosecutor didn't want to go on with it?
At that stage, they didn't. They just said, we're not doing it.
That's it. Full stop, no explanation.
Yep. And the police just said the prosecutor's made his decision, so that's the end of it.
Okay. Is there any way of...
I've got those two letters on my website. So anyone that's interested can start looking at my website and they're already there anyway. You just have to navigate your way to them. Well, I appealed and I told you earlier, last session, that White insisted on hearing my matter. Joe Kilby, the lawyer that organised the forensic testing, he said to me, you're not going to get any new evidence in it anyway. And I said, well, we've got to try. And Joe Kilby went up before White And he said, he's not going to take anything in. And I said, well, look, I'm running out of money. I think I'll better do my own case, and I'll see if I can get it in from the bar. Because you can say things when you're the pretend barrister that they have to hear. So I said what I wanted to White, but he didn't take any notice. And when I wanted to see the transcript, he wouldn't let me see the transcript. And I've never seen the transcript because, and how he gets away with that, I don't know. He said something about it, it's just it for his notes. And, but White actually quipped to me, it was like an aside, he said, the public servants are not on trial here, it's you. It's your trial, not their trial. Because he was seeing that I was getting after these public servants that had done the wrong thing, and he didn't want to know about it. And Robert Simmons, by that time, had finished his case. I told you before that they argued his case on the law, and eventually lost. And he was prepared to give evidence for me. And of course, I didn't have any records of any sort to begin with. But Robert Simmons came along and said, well, I'll give evidence, and I've got all the records, and we'll do it. And I put it to White that this wasn't available to me before because Simmons was running his own case, and it wasn't made available to me. But now it was. Now, they're supposed to take evidence if it's not available to you at the time. But get back to these politicians, your law is wrong in the first place. It is absolutely criminal that people like me can be tried by a magistrate that doesn't know what he's doing. He's thick as a brick, and he tries a fraud matter, and he'd be lucky if he knows how to count the money to go to the paper shop. And this is what they did. They put me before a low-level person, and the fella just followed Simon's Lane's story. It didn't matter what Brian Martin said. Brian Martin was a very clever man. But it didn't matter what he said and what we said. I've already told you that this nitwit magistrate was summing up, and because it suited him to say I gave evidence, he did say that. And in another part, it suited him to say neither of them gave evidence. It just fitted his story. He didn't go by, I was before him for days. And then he says, neither of us gave evidence. Well, that's the sort of law you guys have got. I should have been able to go before a district court judge. But this was such a low-level thing, you put me before a magistrate and you put a mark against my name. And you put a mark against Simmons' name. You. Look, why don't you face up to Simmons? I better have another drink. Now, I really do blame you guys, because Zelling went into this thing properly back in '79, and he was given the answer that you didn't have enough money to have a rehearing before a judge. And the headline in the storyline in the advertiser was money for the arts but not for the courts, something along those lines. Now, how many people have you railroaded into jail? And it's your fault. Don't blame anybody else. You let these rotten judicial people get away with, well, I won't say murder, well, perhaps they do. They get away with what they want to do. I did write a letter to to the governor, and I said, you're seething citizen, I think. I was certainly seething. I am a bit now. I better get on with the story though, because well, I suppose that's actually the perjury. because there's the forensic evidence, and the transcripts there. Everything else that happened was just in the course of appeals and trying to get the matter cleared up. But Samo and I both finished up with 2 months at Cadell. Now, neither of us are complaining about that. We are complaining that you ruined our names, because I know I can't win a civil claim until this is overturned, it's quashed. And Salmon's had to resign from being an authorised accountant. He had to resign from all sorts of things. So it's cost us both very dearly, and it has a big effect on our family life too. And it gets back to it, it's your fault, because you got this rotten law. And don't blame Thorpe, she's quite a nice person, made a mistake, we all make mistakes. And I don't really want to see her jailed, I just want to prosecute it and then give her a warning or whatever you have to do. As long as she's prosecuted and Simmons's conviction's quashed, and so's mine. And at this stage I'd have to give the people at Cadell a compliment that they treated us pretty well, and so did the prisoners. There was one, but it's a dangerous place. In the dormitory I was in, there was another one alongside, and some big muscle-bound fellow got bashed with a cricket bat, bashed while he was asleep. Now, I don't know if they killed him or whether he's just brain damaged, but it was a very serious matter. But that, as far as I know, never got into the papers. I mean, there's a guy bashed while he's asleep, and I only know about it because I was there. And that's, of course, where I met Zach. And that's when I learnt to type. When I knew I was in for a couple of months, I thought, well, about time I did some muscle building, because I'm a bit small up the top here. I thought, oh, I'll go do some weights. But then I thought, oh no, I better learn to type. And I thought my fingers were too big. But Zach was the guy that was in the typing room, and that's how I got to meet Zach. And after a while, Zach showed me his transcript. I mean, Rofe's gone. I mean, he's just another person that comes and goes. But you've still got these laws that Zelling told you about. What's that, 25 years ago? 79, yeah, 26 years maybe. And you make me sick. I just think I'll switch on to Parker now. So I'll switch into the federal matters. I did say how taxmen had showed me what to do so that we fitted to their rules and so forth. Now, for about three years, our claims went through very nicely. And it's quite clear that while Les Miles was running the show, that was the, when I say running the show, he would have been an assessor, but he must have been a head assessor. As my clients made their claims for their tax allowances, because they were exporting, the claims were passed. And then the poison pen letter went in, and Parker got onto them. Now, I've met Parker, I've had a long chat to him. Parker was a rat at the brook, and he told me a story about the wine they were drinking, like Condy's Crystals. It looked like Condy's Crystals, and that's while he was at Tobruk. But he's a horse trader. I'm in the opal, or not now, but I've been in the opal business, and the guys are pretty honourable. You have to be, otherwise you finish up down the hole. but Parker is just a horse trader, because I went to see people in Canberra. I said, what's going on with what Parker's doing? Because all this stuff was passed, and now it's all been knocked back. And Parker was never made a deputy commissioner. He was only an acting deputy commissioner, and then the guy in Canberra, I think his name was Atkins, I think. Anyway, he said, yes, he's shooting from the hip. And that was the description that Canberra was given to Parker, the man in Canberra. Yes, he's shooting from the hip. And what he did was just knocked out all the claims that had passed over the previous 3 or 4 years. Knocked them all out. And then it was up to us to put them back in, get them back in again. And he had no justification for that at all. But he just went, boom, do it all again. And they've got all the power, and I dare say there's the same sort of thing here in England, that if they put an assessment on you, you have to pay the assessment. The assessment can be 10 times what it should be, but if that's the assessment they give you, that's what you have to pay. And if you say that's wrong, then the machinery grinds very slowly. So they've got the power and they use it. Fortunately, they don't use it as much as they could. But anyway, Parker offered me half. He said, well, we'll settle for half. And I said, well, I don't think my clients will agree to that, but I'll put it to them. And I put it to my clients, and I've told you before, though 100 of them were all seething over this, and they said, no, we'll fight him out. Well, of course, if we knew how bad the Taxation Board of Review was, we wouldn't have done that. We would have settled for half, because the Taxation Board of Review is corrupt. The man we went for was Donovan, and when I looked at it afterwards, I thought, how can I sue this man Donovan? And they've got it written into the Act, you can't sue a chairman of a Board of Review. That's why they do these things. They got there's no comeback on them. Anyway, the story with Parker was that he knocked our claims out, and the people came around, and including the guy that said he'd take me down an alley. I left it out the alley the other day, but he said, I'll take it down. We would have taken you down an alley and shot you. Anyway, they briefed a man called Matheson, and we briefed a man called Fisher. They're both QCs, both finished up being judges, and both pretty good guys. But Ian Ward has gone back further than Matheson, because it was Matheson that lied to me while I was a witness. And I'll get to that later, but coming back to Parker, it was the tax guys, and Parker was responsible for them, that put a false brief to Matheson, because they denied or indicated my clients weren't doing any business. Now, as it happens, we were selling a lot of opal to Americans, and the Americans have a lot of information on their cheques. They put the person's name and address, I don't know if they put the phone numbers down, but there's a lot of information on an American cheque. And just for record keeping, I told my staff to photostat every cheque that came in. Now, that was the only reason I did it, but it turned out to be a very important thing, because when they tried to say these various businesses were not being conducted, I had the photocopies. I had hundreds of cheques, all photocopied, and they couldn't say it. And we had the banking records with all the cheques banked, and how they could possibly say these businesses weren't conducting business is beyond me. But they did it by pretending the cheques didn't exist. Now, in the first case where Matheson lied to me, the two lawyers were, roughly speaking, just setting out to argue on the law. And what Matheson did was say to me in the lunch break, I was giving evidence, in the lunch break, will you bring in these records? And he had his piece of paper here like this, and he read out the records he wanted. And I said, yeah, they're just in the boot of my car, out in the car park. So I brought these records in that he asked me for, and then he started to question me. And I said to him, you didn't ask me for that. And he said, yes, I did. I'll read you what I read to you before. And he picked up his piece of paper and he read it to me again. And I just about fell through the floor because I thought, gee, I've blundered. And from that point, Matheson was able to cause me to have to give evidence on my client's books. See, I'm the consultant, and my business is my business, and my client's business is their business. And what the tax department wanted to do was to say the client's business was my business, but they were separate. And by Matheson getting me to give evidence on my client's books, he was then able to then argue that it was all my business. Now, it took me some weeks to be able to read the transcript because it wasn't my case, I was just a witness, but I was very much affected because they were my clients. And if all my clients are suffering, it means I suffer because I haven't got any more clients. So eventually I saw the transcript, and there it is. He asked for 2 different sets of records. It's just that the changes of words were quite small. But it's in the transcript. And it can't be denied that he asked for 1 set of records to start with, and then he asked for a different set. And that went on. Now, my clients lost that case. And my other clients said to me, well, you put the next case on, John, and put all the evidence in. And I ran the case for a couple of weeks, might have been 3 weeks. And it went before Donovan again. And I made sure that the photocopies of the cheques and all the banking records and everything else went into evidence. They definitely went into evidence. And that bastard Donovan, who went against my first client, turned around and said, and the money found their way into the bank accounts, as if we'd just handed it around or this or that. He had the cheques as evidence. It was an exhibit. Now, he couldn't truthfully say